as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see that day.
Became a nightmare. I'm gonna do a walkthrough.
Over 1,300 pieces of evidence were collected from the crime scene.
Scratch marks along the wall.
There was no doubt something paranormal was going on.
And for that exact reason, I'll continue my research to drive away the darkness.
Thanks for tuning in to ASEP Radio. My name is Ben Robison.
And this is Nicole Katsanis.
So, we had a pretty busy October, or at least I would venture to say we did. What was your favorite part of the month in general?
Oh, man, I have to pick just one?
Just one. Because if I let you pick more, you'll just keep going and going and going.
No. Maybe. But, man, I want to say Halloween, but I'm going to have to say the Port Gamble conference.
Halloween, just for the record, was really rad. It was a good holiday, good time with our friends and family, and yeah, it was just a good time had by all. I sound like your father. It was a good time had by all.
Oh, he's rubbing off on you.
Oh, no. So, yeah, Port Gamble, huh?
Yeah, I had a blast at Port Gamble.
It was a ton of fun. That was probably my favorite as well. It's the highlight of the month. We'd been building up and working really hard for this.
Yeah.
And it was just a ton of fun. And a great experience, learning-wise. I walked away from this situation with more knowledge, and there's things that you learn too that humble you a bit, because when you start to get to feel comfortable about something and then somebody else comes along with a little bit more in-depth knowledge of it, and they kind of shake everything up for you, yeah, it was just interesting to have that paradigm shift.
Right. Well, for me, it was interesting because this was actually my first ghost conference.
Right.
So I got schooled in the ways of, what a ghost conference is and how it works. And, I got to participate a little bit as a spectator and walk around and talk to people and kind of do that aspect of it, but then also being there with our own table, and fielding questions and interacting with the patrons who came.
How did you like that, by the way?
I thought it was cool. It was a little nerve-wracking, I do have to say that. At first, I was kind of scared shitless a little bit.
Right.
But I think I handled myself pretty well. And actually, I was, toot toot, here goes my horn. But I thought I fielded some of those questions pretty well.
No,
I
hands off.
Hands
We're gonna
off
take
her.
your hands off. No, hats off to you. That you did a great job, and I was very proud to watch you interact with those folks. Field their questions, and just see the confidence blossom within you. That was pretty cool.
Thanks. I thought it was pretty cool, too. And then, as you say, we also learned a lot from listening to the classes and the speakers and the panels that we had. I mean, that was priceless right there, to be able to just be part of all that stuff and, learn so much. I mean, the speakers who were there, the instructors, they covered a huge gamut of
big time
paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
And so kudos to all of them, and thank you all. Thank you, Pete, so much for putting it all together.
Yeah, hats off to him, or hands off, either way.
Yes, he worked his booty off and got this, for us. And thank you for letting us come out and put on our class.
Thank you for the after hours party or after party. It was just a great time, and nice way to relax and kind of hang out with some friends. I mean, by the end of this thing, even partway through it, we're just dog tired because everybody's worked their butt off. And some of us just didn't even have the ability to keep themselves awake during some of the...
Who are you talking about?
He shall remain nameless because we love him.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, well, we worked our butts off. I mean, every day the conference, it was all day.
Yeah.
So we were there manning the booth or doing a tour or whatever, We were going nonstop, and then afterwards we'd want to actually talk to people, more of our colleagues that we weren't able to talk to during the day since we're manning our table and stuff. So, we'd stay up and drink and chat and have some great conversations about random stuff. Somehow we got talking about headless chickens and all sorts of things. But, it was a great time. Exhausting for sure. I was dog tired, and I'm pretty much a let's keep going type of person, but I was tired.
Yeah. It's a lot more
fun.
than what I think most people would ever think going into this, never doing one before.
Right.
And see, the pressure's harder for you and I because it's just you and I, whereas back in the day when I ran Port, I had a whole team.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, we were tired. But, it's just a taxing ordeal. Fun, albeit, but very taxing.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't get to just sit there. I mean, yeah, it looks like we're just sitting there, but we aren't. Like, it's not physically taxing, I'll say, necessarily. I mean, we do have to just sit there all day and really not do much. But it's mentally taxing because you've got to kind of be on. If someone comes up to your table, you've got to field whatever they throw at you.
Yeah.
Or know where to send them, I can't help you, but this person can. So, taking in information, giving information, it's constantly going, and then trying to take in the whole town of Port Gamble, which is amazingly cute. If you guys have a chance to go check out Port Gamble, do it. It
is like something out of a movie set for some kind of sleepy coastal town.
Oh, I love it.
And it was just absolutely beautiful. But you're right. If you've never seen it, go check it out. Port Gamble, Washington.
Yes, definitely. And next year, I want to rent a house.
I think that's going to have to happen.
Yeah, instead of the hotel, which the hotel was fine.
Yeah.
But, the little houses out there.
We were not as close, and that would have been just great. Those houses were just gorgeous.
So next year, if anybody is going and wants to rent a house with us, call us.
Yep. Definitely. So let's talk about some of the other things we got going on.
All right. What else do you want to do?
Well, we've got been kind of chipping away at Experiment O.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, kind of coming along as much as it can.
Yeah, I mean, we're making headway, or you're making headway.
Conversations are being had with our colleagues, and
so we've got
we're moving
that in
along.
the books. So
it's funny how you start off with an idea for an experiment, and it ends up getting its fair share of challenges to it, but it turns from one thing to a completely different thing by the end of it. And I kind of knew that was going to happen. I didn't know as to this level how much, difference there was really going to be in the long run, but it's still going to happen.
Yeah, and I think it's also, we've kind of got two experiments out there.
Yeah.
And fielding, just making sure they don't cross over and do their own thing.
Yeah, we're going to be kind of doing a Gonsfield effect style investigation. Wow.
Experiment?
Experiment, yeah. You're investigating the concepts as well, so it's not way off base. But yeah, it's really an experiment that we're trying to run. But, it's taking a modifier to the whole thing and seeing what maybe comes out of that.
Right.
It's always fine-tuning it, maybe trying it a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right.
Stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight.
There you go. So let's see, what else do we got going on?
We have an investigation coming up.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, we even asked a couple colleagues to join us, Jay Verberg and Michael White of PRI, and we're looking forward to that. This investigation, we're not going to say where the location is, just for respect purposes. It's not a private residence, believe it or not, but it is a local known location that we don't want to quite just provide information about.
Right.
It
We just
being
don't
a
want people
haunt.
going out there like, hey, let's check this place out.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, those are the things we got going on.
Yeah,
Other than
and
that,
then, we also should probably mention it's a few months out, but we do have the Ghost Conference.
yes,
The OGC.
the OGC.
It's in April, right? April?
It is. It's usually the first weekend of April, and I think that still holds true. It'll be April 1st and 3rd.
First through 3rd? It's the whole weekend,
yeah,
right?
1st through 3rd.
Yeah, which I'm excited about because last year it was on my birthday, and so I couldn't go.
Right.
And so this year it's right before my birthday, so it won't conflict with anything.
Yeah,
So
that'll be
thank you.
really
And
nice.
it's in Seaside this year.
See, and that's what's even better, is that this time we're going to have a venue that really, really will allow for the OGC to be what it really is. It's such a great conference, and now that they'll have the room and it's more set up for the exact thing that it is, it's going to probably be a bigger hit.
And we're going to talk? Do we have that set up yet or no?
That's the plan.
Okay.
We're going to try to talk, do a lecture of sorts. Who knows what else we'll end up doing, but there's still a lot to be kind of figured out. Still a lot to be decided too from the OGC's perspective, what they're going to do and who they're going to let talk.
Right. Well, they still have months to figure that out.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. I've wanted to go to the OGC, so I get to go this year. It's out at Seaside, which I'm super excited about. And we're going to stay with our dear friend Katie at the Old Wheeler.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, me too. I've never stayed there, but
Me
I've
neither.
got to go through a quick kind of tour of the place once.
Yeah, you did, and I sat in the car.
And that wasn't my choice.
I had the kids.
Yeah, I know. So, at any rate, that's going to be fun, and especially being able to stay at the Old Wheeler.
Yeah.
So.
I do want to touch on one other thing, if we can throw back a little bit to the Port Gamble. We did have a class.
Oh, we did, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
I guess we should have brought that up.
Well, it
Fail.
made me think about it. We're possibly doing another one. We did one. It was our first class together. So I want to say congratulations, friend.
Congratulations,
job well done. Yes.
Yeah, colleague. Yeah.
Good job to us. I think we did a pretty kick-ass class. I wish more people would have been able to attend, but scheduling-wise, I think it just didn't happen.
Well,
but,
yeah.
I think it was a great size for my first time teaching a class like that. I liked not having a million people there staring at me and watching my every move.
When I have a class that's usually smaller in size, I usually default to it's the quality, not the quantity.
Right.
And honestly, it was. We had really good interaction from the class
really good
attendees, and yeah, it was a good experience for both you and I, especially since that was the first time we had done something like that together.
Right.
So that was cool.
And I think we were able to pack a ton of info into that and give it to people, and we had good feedback from them too about how informative it was. So go team!
Go
Yay.
team! Go team! Well, so let's roll into what we're talking about on this episode, or what others will be talking about.
Yes, we're not really talking this episode. This is, a different one for us as a team, but Ben, you've done this before.
Yeah, it's like an annual tradition now. We try to do something fun, light, and I guess somewhat at the expense of our storytellers. This is the Ghost Stories edition. This is the second one we've done. And what we do is we collect some ghost stories that have happened to people, real life stories, so they can tell you in their own words. And so what we've done is we've brought them all together into this show, and you will get to hear their spooky, eerie encounters.
Real life encounters,
Yeah.
too, right? They're not made up. These
Nope.
are real life going-ons. And thank you to everybody who has taken the time to call in and give us your ghost stories and being open to sharing them with us.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. And if there's anyone out there who wants to contribute, because we're going to keep doing this every November, December, I would say, right?
Right. It's
and
a good time to do this.
It is. I mean, with Christmas around the corner and the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, you know,
Exactly. Ghost stories are,
great.
It's
not
very
just
well.
around Halloween time. It's,
Yep.
I mean, it's a good time of year in general. So
Yeah, they're very well known during this time of year to happen, and so they
we'll
go
keep
hand
it
in
up.
hand.
We do invite people if they want to, share ghost stories with us. Always let us know. We will record them and add them to our show.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get enough, maybe we'll do a biannual ghost story.
Who knows?
Who knows?
There's plenty of accounts out there.
Right.
There's no doubt about that.
Right.
So, well, I say without further ado, we roll into this. We step out of our cozy confines here in the nice homemade sound studio we got and fire up the campfire.
Yes, so grab some hot cocoa and some marshmallows and gather
or a hot toddy.
There you go. Gather
Sit around the
fire.
campfire and listen to the ghost stories from the Eerie 8.
I'm Jake, and this is my experience with an entity of some sorts. So this happened years ago, really. At like the age of, I want to say like 11 or 12, maybe. I lived, in a decent, like 3-story house, and it was late night, and I was pretty much ready to just kind of hop in my bed and open my laptop and just do whatever. I want to say, like I mentioned earlier, I want to say it had to do with YouTube or something, most likely. So I just kind of hopped on my laptop, and then I kind of pulled up my covers over me, so just kind of, the only light I really had was my laptop, and I was just under my blanket, nice and cozy, and before I hopped in, I'd actually shut my door, and, usually my house is kind of at a tilt, just you can't really notice it, but it's at a slight tilt, since it's on a hill, actually, and the door kind of slightly creaked open, which I kind of thought, oh, it's the house being sideways, which was fine. So I got up and just closed it, and then I walked back to my bed, and then I started hearing creaks. I'm just kind of, whatever, the house is settling. And then I looked out I looked to the left of my bed, where I'm actually sitting now, and I saw kind of a shape of a giant dog-like animal. I did own a dog, but it didn't look anything close to the size of this thing, so I don't know if my mind was actually playing a trick on me or what, but it looked pretty, huge, so I actually immediately call my dog's name, and it doesn't respond, which normally my dog would respond, so I was terrified at that moment, and then it just kind of looked dead at me for a minute, and then turned around, started walking, away. It was kind of at a limp, though. I don't know how to explain it. It was if it was a paw, I want to say it was left paw was hurt or something. And it actually it kind of got to the edge of my bed, and then just kind of vanished. I was kind of sitting there thinking, oh, that was just I'm probably really tired and my brain's just kind of not right. But so I was well, that, that's whatever. I kind of went up and then went to the bathroom, walked back thinking, what was that? I don't quite understand what that had to do with anything. That didn't make sense to me. But I just kind of played it off as, okay, well, clearly my mind is playing some type of trick on me. And so, then I actually went back into the bed, to my bed, and then laid down, went back under the covers and just started watching videos. And then throughout the night, I've kind of heard a growl and scratching. And I was just throughout the whole night, and eventually I was alright, I'm not doing this. I kind of walk out of my room, for a little bit, and I just sit on the couch and watch TV. But I just hear something sniffing, and then at that point I turn around expecting to see my dog, and I didn't see anything. So I was just like kind of freaking out at that point, like, okay, something is definitely here and it's not right. Eventually, I mean, after that though, I didn't really see anything, so I was like, alright, whatever. I just ended up going back to my bed and then falling asleep. And this time I actually fell asleep with my dog in my room because I didn't want to be alone at that point. But when I woke up the next morning, there were like claw marks on like the wall that I couldn't see in the dark. But it wasn't like, you know, a little dog scratching at it. It was like something clawed like through my wall, and it's still there today actually. Like, I can look dead at it if I want to. But so, and then there was like, my bed was kind of torn apart on the sides. I ended up having to get a new bed, and I mean, I haven't really experienced anything else since, but I mean, it's like, I don't know, it was probably the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. I'm honestly quite skeptical when it comes to spirits and ghosts, but that's something that's made me definitely think they're out here somewhere, or that something's out there at least. And I mean, nothing major's ever happened like that, and I don't know, it just kind of looked, the way it looked seemed really intimidating. Like, I want to, like I said, it kind of looked like a dog, but at the same time, it looked like it could have been like anything. Like, it could have been something that just changed its shape, or I don't know, it was just a shadow. Like, it was darker than the darkness of my room at the time, and so it was definitely there, and it kind of, it was, the way it looked is if like you ever woke up in the middle of the night and like as your eyes adjusted and you kind of saw a figure. That's kind of what it looked like, except it wasn't like as fuzzy. Like, it looked like you could see the perfect outline of it, and that just really scared me. That's all I can really remember about it, really.
Hey everybody, this is Clarissa Vazquez, founder of the Colorado Coalition of Paranormal Investigators. We serve western Colorado and eastern Utah, and we've been in operation since 2004. And the one story I want to tell you tonight took place in 2010 at a residential investigation in Nucla, Colorado. We were investigating a 3-story home that had no heat, had electricity but no heat, and they had a wood-burning stove in the house. And I should probably mention that it was uninhabited at the time. The owners of the house could not keep renters in there because of all of the paranormal activity. And so we went in there. There were 10 of us that went in to investigate this 3-story house, complete with full basement, dirt floor basement, mostly used for canned goods, mason jars, things like that. You know, just storing some cardboard boxes and stuff. We decided that we were going to light a fire in the wood-burning stove. But before we could do that, we had to clean out the chimney pipe because there were a large number of dead birds in the chimney pipe. Now that part's going to come into play later, but it took us probably a good hour to get all of the dead birds cleaned out. You know, we had to climb up on the roof and go in, you know, with a broomstick and get all of the dead birds cleaned out, and then, you know, scoop them out of the fireplace itself, and it was really gross. And we finally got this fire going inside the wood-burning stove, and we got our equipment set up and set to investigating. And every investigator at that location was having some sort of personal experience. But it wasn't your average personal experience, and no two investigators were experiencing the same thing. These personal experiences were designed to really get at the investigator. If the investigator was bothered by disembodied voices, they were hearing disembodied voices. If they were bothered by seeing shadows or apparitions, they were seeing shadows and apparitions. If they were bothered by being touched, they were being touched. And all of these personal experiences were custom to each individual investigator. And no two were alike. And me being me, having the years and almost decades, plural, of experience that I have, I wasn't affected by hearing disembodied voices, or being touched, or seeing shadows and apparitions, or hearing knocks and bangs. I wasn't affected by those things. And so this entity or entities, we don't for sure know if there was one or more, decided that it was going to get in my head. And I was down in the basement with the technical manager at the time, and we were just doing a simple walkthrough, a simple grid scan with the EMF meters, and just taking our time, having some casual conversation, and all of a sudden I had this intense fear of doom, that something bad was going to happen to all of us. And it got so intense that I had to remove myself from the investigation. And what I did was using a walkie-talkie, radioed up to the technical center, to our base station. My technical manager and I were taking a time out, and that we would be back, obviously, but told them that we were taking a break. And I walked all the way to the edge of the property, and this was a farmhouse. This was a 3-story farmhouse. It sat on I don't know how many acres of land, but I walked all the way over to the edge of the property and chain smoked a half a pack of cigarettes before I realized what had happened. From there, I'm like, okay, no more, this is not going to get the best of me. This is not going to affect me. And so we went back in, continued our investigation, and eventually I was upstairs on the 3rd floor with 2 other investigators, and I was using a piece of equipment. It's called a night owl monocular. It allows you to see in the dark, but it won't record. It's just a nifty little night vision tool, and it's a monocular. It's not binoculars, so you only get to use one eye. And I'm looking into the attic of this 3rd floor living area, and I'm looking into the attic, and I see on the floor what to me looks like a dead bird. And we had our audio recorders going the whole time, obviously. On the audio recorder, you hear me go, "Ew, what is that?" And then I asked, "Is there a dead bird in there?" to one of my other investigators. What I was actually seeing was a piece of black garbage bag on the floor in this attic space. But looking through the night owl monocular, the night vision and just being a monocular, it distorted it just enough that it looked like a dead blackbird on the floor. And since we had been dealing with dead birds earlier, I didn't think it odd or strange at all that there'd be a dead bird in the attic. And when we went back and listened to the recording, you hear me say, "Ew, what is that?" If I remember correctly, the female investigator that was with us, it was myself, a female, and a male. The female was holding the audio recorder. So I was probably 10 feet away from where she was recording. So when you listen to the recording, it almost sounds like I'm whispering. But you can clearly hear me say, "Ew, what is that?" And then this voice comes over and says, "Dead bird." And then you hear me ask, "Hey, is there a dead bird in here?" So once again, the entity or entities got to me using my brain, because it knew that I thought I was seeing a dead bird, or it was making me think I was seeing a dead bird. I can't say for sure which, but that investigation, as far as personal experiences go, that one takes the cake out of any other that we've had. And it's certainly the one that so far to this day has given me the most run for my money. And it's the one that I use, for training exercises, and when I'm training new people on the team, or if I'm giving a lecture or a seminar somewhere, I use that as an example that, number one, not all ghostly activity is the same. Number two, not every person is going to experience the same thing. If you can get 2 or more people to experience the same thing, you've got validation. But if you've got an entity or entities that are as intelligent as what we were dealing with that night in Nucla, Colorado, no 2 people were having the same experience. Everybody was pretty baffled, but everybody was also unnerved, because it was the kind of activity that was specific to them. And it was a great night. I love to tell the story, because no matter how big and bad you think you are, or how many times you've seen and done it, there can always be something that gets to you. And I'm living proof of that. That night certainly proved that I hadn't seen it all, I hadn't experienced it all, even though I thought I had. And it proved to me that they are still smarter than we are.
My name is Seth Michael, and I work as a full-time psychic medium. And I have a story that began about 6 years ago, when I had first met my girlfriend, Jill, online. She had mentioned that she was feeling some presences around her. She'd noticed that kids were getting more violent, or violent, I should say, and very, very depressed, and usually in a certain room. And then I described, so I looked into it from where I was. They call that remote viewing, where I just focus on a location, and then I begin to see and who is there, and to describe the activity that they're doing, and things like that. So I looked into it for her, and I saw approximately, I think it was 3 entities at the time, and I felt non-human, felt they were not having a good intent whatsoever. They were open. This is what I saw. I saw a Ouija board in a closet with boys. In that particular room I described, she said that's the one she thought too. Across from a bathroom, a right side when you walk up, things like that. She then said she was able to then confirm that there were some boys that would temporarily live there or visit, friends of her girls, and that they for sure did. They got confirmation they did a Ouija board in the closet and were drunk, possibly under the influence of drugs at the time as well. And ever since that is when things were going awry. I also felt that these are pretty strong and able to influence, and that was I told her that before I knew the extent of what was going on. I felt like there were suicidal urges, and she said that whoever stayed in that room would talk about it and actually get really close to attempting. And then she had said that they've heard a radio go on in the room. No one's in there, and they go in and it's unplugged. They've heard, I believe it was voices. There was some just odd noises coming from downstairs. And this was before I visited. So she confirmed all that. She said, are there any other spirits? And I saw a couple on a staircase. It was kind of in and out. I felt it was unrelated to this one. So time went on, and I came to visit Jill for the first time. And I went into the room, and it was an immediate feeling of dread, and any kind of fear that I would have, like deep inside, was pulled out. And I felt as if I was in total terror. Although I was still feeling okay, I just could feel something like that being pulled out of me, which was an odd feeling. Like, I'm not scared, but this is almost making me scared. And my body the hair stands up, and it's just not comfortable whatsoever. So I saw a boy. We talked about it. Jill and I went outside the room, and she said, well, let's talk to the boy and find out. And I remember saying and feeling, it's a boy, but something's off. Something's not right. So we talked to the boy that night, and this was before we had a team. Because we're with the team now, but this was way before that. The boy we asked, how old are you? And he said 3. And then with more questions, it came out like he was age 3 and was in 3rd grade. His address had many 3s. And before I knew 503 was an area code, we actually asked him for his number, and we got one. 503, beep, 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 beep. You know, that, and because I don't even remember it anymore. We called it. Because he said he was a missing child. Like, oh, okay, but something was not right still. I could just feel it, but I was going with the motions. We call it, and the person had just got a new number. So that was interesting. They had just switched, and they had been getting calls for somebody else. Then, because it was a boy, Jill, as sweet as she is, was saying, well, you can come out and play with the dogs if you want. You don't have to stay in the room, because I remember also saying they can't leave the room. Well, after that happened, we went to the store, and I came back, and on the way back, I kept, it just came out, Jill, that's no boy. It just clicked. It's this guy finally made a connection to why it felt so creepy, is that was imaging as a boy, whatever it was, this non-human entity, sort of shape-shifting. And I wasn't used to a lot of that hardcore. I've had some things in my life as a just somebody who can connect to that side, but not to this degree. And there being multiple that I'm aware of. We went back, and we noticed that right after that, the dog's behavior was very erratic. One would bark at the air in the closet. There was the feeling of following. There's an element of just, well, there was more than one. You could just feel it kind of splitting, or it could have just been fracturing. Anyway, before the boy had permission to leave, Jill went in and she took pictures, the regular digital camera, and I would ask the boy to stand in a certain spot, and I showed her with my hand how tall I saw him, and at the exact same level, there had been an orb. And I know what this community feels about orbs, but it's just interesting when it happens when I'm feeling it, and then something shows up. And a lot of times, this EVP would go on. We didn't have a recorder at the time, unfortunately. Every time she took a pic, though, wherever we asked him to stand and smile, there was this huge orb, and one looked like a smiley face. Of course, we can't prove that that's what was going on. We can't prove that it wasn't us. But it was interesting. Every spot it would be in. and along with 2 others. So there were 3. Also, before the boy had left the room, I believe there was a time where someone had mentioned, say I bathe this house in the blood of Christ. So I tried that, and I heard, ha, 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 real mechanical like that. And it was coming from that room. Also, we heard marbles. So you got to keep in mind, I've been connecting with spirits as far as in my belief, I have been connecting with spirits as long as I can remember, but it's very, very rare that I could say, yes, I believe that I had actual physical paranormal activity. There was marbles. There were marbles, we heard marbles being dropped and rolling several times. We'd go up there, and I think we found 1 marble. We could not explain it. There was nobody in the house. The dogs were with us downstairs. The door was shut. There was no explanation for this. All right, so fast forward. The boy's out now, apparently, and now we know it's not a boy. I even got tipsy at one point. We went to a get-together, and I was slightly buzzed, not thinking, dude, don't go in there if you're thinking that something non-human and negative is in there and be a little buzzed. Because then we're in danger of being more vulnerable, more open, less defense, less protection at times. So I went in there, and I was walking up the stairs, and I don't exactly remember what I saw, but I felt them getting into my head and wanting to push me down. It was very difficult. My behavior became erratic because I believe I'm way on the empath scale, so I had more fits of sadness and crying and everything like that. Well, at the time also, a boy came to stay. Jill was letting him stay there for a while, and he that is at the time where now I'm back home. Actually, I lived 2,000 miles away, so I went back home. So that was a visit, and she said that the boy had been experiencing some difficulty, obviously. So I work with my spirit guides, and I asked for there to be a seal on that portal to at least put them, so that they wouldn't affect anybody negatively. And then I saw this Teflon cover and seal over it. So they were still hanging out. It seems as if there was a portal they could come and go, but I did kind of see them sort of watching out, and I didn't want to do more than that for now because I wasn't even there. The boy then reported, not knowing this, that he kept feeling things watching him when he was sleeping, as if it was through a clear window. So that was interesting. And I came back again, and it was still very intense. Because of the house was in disarray at the time, there was moving going on. Jill is she didn't want to present the house that way. So when I'd ask her for help, could I bring in some people? She just wasn't comfortable with that. Understandable. She wanted to work on the house more. However, it was very difficult for me because it was so many, and because I was like emotionally tied to Jill at that point. So I just felt it was a little much, although I kept doing what I know how to do. I kept going in there and asking for guides and doing my own special prayers from my heart, whatever I needed to do. And it was starting to get better. Back up again. When I went home, I think it was the second time when I was talking about the boy, right before the boy. This is around the Teflon time, right before the Teflon time. Before I was able to make any seal or thought of asking for that, Jill was alone in the house at the time. This is even before the boy visited, I think. Yes. Jill was alone. There was scratching in her walls. This is after she gave permission for the boy to come out of the room, which we all know by now was not a boy. And it was terrifying. She was in this huge house, and the dogs are going nuts, and there was no explanation for the scratching. Yes, it could have been animals, But with everything else, it was just a really interesting correlation. And I felt it. I felt it like I would when I remoted again. I felt this dread. I felt the same things that I did when I was there. So I put myself into that room and tried to take care of everything at that point. And I know, rookie mistake, even though I've been doing this for several years, just not to this extent, this many. But I forgot to do a total protection on myself, and I went there. And then I came back to my body, I guess you could say. And we were talking on the phone at the time. Because we could be somewhere spiritually and still be awake and alert and at the same time. So it wasn't total astral where I was completely out of my body. Part of my spirit was. Best way I can explain it. So when I came back, someone had followed me. Woohoo! So here I was, being led down this tunnel. And there was a siren, this beautiful siren. She wasn't even that good looking, but I was following her anyway. It was very odd. It was very drawn. It was like a magnet, metal coming to a magnet. And I heard Jill talking to me, but it was very, very faded and faint. And I could hear her calling my name, but I really couldn't do much about it. Then one of my guides stepped in front of me and said, go back. So I did, bam, right back to my body, and it was this weird tunnel I'm thinking about, and I said, okay, what the heck was that? And Andrew, one of my guides, he goes, that was the tunnel of death. Like, what the hell? He said it was as if, he said, okay, I'm just going to tell you what I heard him say. I heard him say that was so they could get you out of the way to do a possession or an oppression, and I'm like, dang. So it's very, thank goodness, that was around the time I was more emotionally put together than I've ever been, because I had just come out of I had a lot of training on what to do about my emotions, keep myself as clear as possible, so that I could distinguish what's me and what's spirits and other people. So that helps. So I was able to know this wasn't me. I was able to see exactly what I did in my own experience, I should say. It ended finally. Jill did give permission to have her a cousin and his wife come, and we just kept working on it. And then it felt better. It just finally was cleared up. There was no more noises. There was no more scratching. There was nothing. Everything felt pretty good. It was distressful though, so I kept the door closed, even though I felt everything was gone. And I found the Ouija board in the laundry room, and I said, Jill, this was be it. And that actually happened before this got more intense. As I'm thinking about it now, and I remember, as soon as the planchette was moved, that's when more of it got intense. Interesting. Could we say maybe coincidence? Don't know. So we removed the planchette, and we made sure that the Ouija board was safely taken care of and no longer in the house. And that is when everything was done and said. We were sitting in the living room, and Jill said, we should help others. Why don't we put a team together? And I basically thought she was freaking crazy out of her mind. Like, are you serious? That wasn't easy. Well, in my experience, that was actually very rare for me to come across something that intense. And I resisted the team idea for a while, but my guides were saying, well, actually, if you think about it, this could have been the experience that you needed to put you on that path. So, and that resonated. So that is the birth, then, of White Light Paranormal Insight Team. We wanted to be able to gather evidence and be able to resolve it the best that we could. I would not like to draw attention to myself to ever have that experience again, and I believe that it's a possibility I may not. But it's something that I cherish as a very, very extremely valuable learning experience.
Hi, my name is Mary Bethune. I live in Bremerton, Washington, and my story, I call it the Puerto Rican ghost story. Years ago, when we were kids, we lived in Puerto Rico, near San Juan, and we lived in this huge apartment complex. As it was custom, the kids always got together and went from apartment to apartment. As back in the day, we always knew our neighbors and felt safe to do so. Living in Puerto Rico, there are lots of haunted places. And as a child, we always heard stories about El Morro, which is a castle, or a fortress rather, in San Juan, which my sister and I explored many times. And that was haunted, reportedly haunted. And we also explored the old churches where they actually had a canonized saint, which was pretty scary when you're a kid. So this ghost story particularly happened on Halloween. There were about 7 of us, aged anywhere from about 8 to 12, including my older sister, Pat. So we were all dressed in our costume finery and very excited about going out and getting tons of candy. So we were told not to go about 4 blocks and come back when we were good kids, and we did. So as we progressed from apartment building to apartment building, we were looking at our stash, so to speak, and we're getting close to curfew, so we all decided let's find one final good place that we could go to. So let me explain a little bit what the apartments look like. There were three floors, and in Puerto Rico, there are the slat-style windows with no screen, so you actually had to roll them open. And you could see inside, you could see people having dinner or whatever. It was a great night, too. It was nice and cool, and I don't think there was a full moon, but we were pretty excited and a little nervous about going from place to place. So as we're getting near the end of the 4 blocks, I looked up and I saw up on the 3rd floor this apartment where there's this big party going on. You could see people in the window dancing and music, people talking, and costumes. And we all decided this is the place. So we all ran up the stairs to the 3rd floor. We get to the apartment door, and it's decorated with, a witch on the door and a great doormat with, I don't know, maybe skeletons or something on it. And I remember walking around and looking in the window, seeing a lot of people in there, and they were laughing and, drinking. And there are costumes, there are like witch costumes, devil costumes, ghost costumes, the typical stuff you would think. Great Puerto Rican music, people are having a great time, and we were like, this is the motherboard, we got it. This is going to be tons of candy. So we went around and I knocked on the door. The second I knocked on that door, everything disappeared. The decorations on the door disappeared. The doormat disappeared. It was dead silent in the apartment. And as we ran screaming, needless to say, we were kids, we took off screaming down the stairs. When I looked back, the windows were all shut. It was dark. And that was that. We don't know what that was. And to this day, I can't tell you what it was. I'm not really sure. But I can tell you what. You've never seen a bunch of kids running and screaming so fast back home on a Halloween night.
My name is Casey Goodwin, and my story takes place in Whittier, California in August of 1994, literally the day before I moved up from there to my current location up here in Oregon. Basically, to set the stage, I grew up in a ranch-style home, very open layout, and pretty much what happened was living in this house for so long, there are always kind of things that always seem kind of off. It used to be my grandparents' house, and then they shortly moved up to Oregon, so we stayed behind to help move the sale of the home along. And so some of the weird things that would occur there from time to time that we always kind of would write off with, hear things, and it would sound like, people walking around and such. And on the night before I moved up, something occurred, and everything else had pretty much been packed up in the moving truck, aside from one couch and a TV. I had my friend hanging out that night, and we had just said goodbye. He headed home, and I was just settling in to go to bed. And about 20 or so minutes into trying to go to sleep, I started to hear something that sounded like footsteps. And the footsteps came from the back of the house, and the house was built back in the 70s. So one of the funny, interesting things that was never replaced for some reason was this really old vinyl accordion style door that would clap as you slide it open. And that used to be where my bedroom was. So in order to go through it, of course, someone would have to open the door. Well, the footsteps came from that area, and the door had been closed, and the footsteps had started. And that went on for quite a while. And it wasn't until, I don't know, about 10 minutes later where the footsteps stopped. And at this point, I'm completely terrified because it's dark. We have no phones in the house, and there was no way I was going to get up from where I was. And it just went silent. It went silent for about 3 or so minutes until all of a sudden I heard deep, heavy breathing almost directly next to me in the same room. And it was terrifying. Didn't know what to do. And the breathing lasted maybe a minute or so. And then the footsteps kind of went away. I'd been researching this kind of stuff since about 92, 93. But this was kind of my first moment of terror, I guess. Mainly because I didn't know what the hell was going on. And, you know, two, I was by myself and I was completely unprepared for what had happened. So fast forward a couple years, I started hearing stories from my mom about things. And found out that her and her sister had done some Ouija board sessions in the home, and they had experienced some weird things after. Now, could that have something to do with it? Yeah, sure. Or it could be, you know, everybody's overactive imaginations conjuring up things that aren't really there. But I'd always wondered why my grandmother, she was a very traditional Spanish Catholic lady. I mean, when she passed away, she was in her 80s. And one of the things I always noticed about her is she would go around in this very same house every single night, like clockwork. She would go around every single room with a rosary, and she'd be rubbing the beads, and she'd be talking to herself. Now, as a kid, I was always thinking, she's a little old and nutty. Well, I found out that what she was doing was she was actually blessing the house. She would literally go through every single room at the house and blessing it. And this is because she believed that when they did their Ouija board session, that they actually opened something up or brought something in, and activity had occurred to my grandmother herself. So at that point, every day since, I think, the late 60s, she would go around and bless the house. And so I thought that was very interesting. And since then, I've always wanted to go back to the house and see, you know, as any paranormal researcher would want to, you know, go back and try and re-experience that. But I've not been afforded that opportunity, and so it just kind of goes down as one of those crazy stories. So that's my scary story.
My name is Morgan Sampson. I live in Seattle, and I'm 30 years old, and this ghost story is 28 years old. But it starts with a little bit of history first. My last name is Sampson, and I carry that proudly, much to my husband's chagrin. My father was the son of a man who had a very famous grandfather. His name was William T. Sampson. He was a rear admiral in the United States Navy in the 1800s. He was born in 1840 and went to the academy. He graduated first in his class. He was a real smart cookie, and went directly into teaching physics, of all things, at the academy. He hung around long enough to get some recognition from Lincoln while he was in office, and then promoted to his own ship during the Spanish-American War. He was down in Cuba, keeping an eye on torpedoes. He was doing sweeps to make sure that they weren't being ambushed, I guess. And as a rear admiral, he was one of the top brass. He was actually on a ship that got hit by a torpedo. It sank. It killed 75 of his sailors, but he survived to see the Spanish-American War. So the famous story that they still teach at the academy and to all incoming sailors is that he was responsible for the the bombing of the Spanish fleet in Cuba, and he called the president and said, "The fleet under my command offers the nation as a 4th of July present the whole of the Spanish fleet." It's a really famous line. After that, he got more recognition into the turn of the century, around 1900, and he was given the Admiral's Cup, which is a beautiful silver cup that has mermaids as the handle. It's kind of the epitome of what you're going for if you're in his line of work. So he had really kind of crested. He retired in 1902 and died a couple of months later. So what does this matter? Well, he had 2 wives. His first wife gave birth to 2 sons, of which is my lineage. That's where I get my last name, Sampson. It sounds like she died, and then he got married again to a woman named Miney, and they spent the latter years of his life together in a cabin in Maine. That's where they retired, and he died. So, fast forward to my life. It's 1986, and my father has just given birth, or seen me be given birth to. My sister's 5 years older than I am, and he invites his father to come and see the family. He kind of shuns him, and kind of, long story short, they had kind of an on and off relationship. So I only met my grandfather a couple of times. The first time I ever met him, I was 2. We flew out as a family, the 4 of us, my mom, my dad, and my sister and I, flew out to Maine, and we actually flew in to somewhere cheaper. We were on a budget, and we rented a car and drove 4 hours in the middle of the night to get to this cabin. And it turns out my grandfather was still living in the cabin that the Admiral had lived in. They'd made some changes to it. Imagine a normal, but probably pretty big, 2-story cabin that had a modern attachment on one of the wings. Very compartmentalized, not one of these open and airy modern attachments, kind of a 3-bedroom or a 3-room attachment along with a garage. So we've landed, I think, somewhere close and drove 3 or 4 hours to the cabin. And by the time we got there, it was around 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm 2 years old. I'm out. I get carried from the car, taken upstairs, and put directly into the bed that they had ready for me. My sister, who's 5, she gets her things. She snuggles into the bed in the same room as I am. So we're put to bed. My mom and dad go to bed. My mom falls asleep right away. My dad stays up to, of all things, read Pet Sematary to keep himself, to get himself tired to go to sleep for the evening. So, in the middle of the night, I was visited by this really lovely woman. She was in a black gown. She had a white cap on and a white apron. And she came into the room. I don't remember if she opened the door or not. And she swooped me up like I was, a small baby. But I was 2 at the time. And she carried me in her arms out of the room, into the hallway, down some stairs, through 2 doors, and showed me this picture above a fireplace. She pointed at it. And then we went into another room. 2 other doors later, she showed me a trophy on top of a filing cabinet. And then she took me back upstairs, and she put me back down to sleep, and she kissed me goodnight, and she tucked me in. And I remember thinking that was pretty cool, there was this nice woman, and she showed me around. And so I wake up the next morning, and we go downstairs, and at the very bottom of the stairs is the kitchen. And that was part of the original cabin. So I'm sitting there, I'm eating my Fruit Loops at a kitchen table with my family and my grandfather, who's a single gentleman. Like, there's no, grandmother in the house. And I just start telling them about the cool woman that I met the previous evening. And my grandfather turns white, And my mother, being the inquisitive woman she is, she says, oh, really? Well, what did she show you? And I said, oh, well, come with me. And I, as a 2-year-old, took them through multiple closed doors and showed them the picture on top of the fireplace and through multiple other closed doors and showed them the trophy. And at this point, my grandfather was just freaked out. He just didn't talk. And it was just this weird moment of, well, that was a ghost. So that wasn't necessarily what you think it was. And yeah, so it kind of remained this weird story around my family, very well known. As I was growing up, I was afraid of the dark, and I would always see this woman, the same woman, at the end of my bedroom hallway or something like that, and she was really comforting to me. I turned 9, and my grandfather passed away. I'd only met him a couple more times after that time. And all of his belongings got liquidated out of the cabin and sent to my father. So we're going through all of his things, and I'm shaking just thinking about it because I opened a box and I pulled out this picture of this woman with this portrait and this trophy. And it was a black and white picture, and on the back it had an inscription that said her name was Miney. It was his second wife. And she was very proud of him. She was so proud of him when he died. And we ended up getting both the Admiral's Cup, turns out that's what that trophy was, and the portrait. We received both of those items, along with a couple of uniforms, some swords, some other letters. I mean, really impressive stuff that we've sent since sold some of the things to a collection. But my parents still have the cup and the picture of the Admiral, and it sticks with me because I've ended up in government work, in politics and public policy, and it's really funny to recognize that Miney didn't pick my sister, who works in Hollywood. She's a set dresser. She didn't pick my parents, who could have really used some help. They were really struggling at the time. She showed me what my family lineage is, and I take that really seriously. I like to think that she's my version of a guardian angel, and she knew I was going to do really big things. So not only do I have my family to live up to, but man, I've got Miney. She's looking at me, making sure that I'm doing the best that I can, and making sure that I'm doing the family proud. So that's my ghost story. I still feel her a lot, and I wonder why she picked me, because I'm not even her blood. But when I have my own house, I'm gonna be able to put up the portrait and the Admiral's Cup along with the picture of her in the dress and everything, and it's gonna mean the world to me to be able to have that, and it's still really special to me that she picked me, and I like to think that she did it for a reason. So thanks for listening to my ghost story.
Hi, my name is Shawn Flye, and I'm from PGI Northwest, and I have a couple stories I'm going to tell you. Here's my first story. The first ghost I ever saw was when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I was in my bedroom playing, and I heard a knock at the door, and I walked down the hallway to glance at the door, but my mom and dad beat me to the door first. And when they opened the door, my mom and dad was presented a flag, a rolled up flag in a triangle shape. There was a couple military people handing them the flag. And I didn't really know at that age what was going on, but I walked back down to my bedroom, and I heard them talk for a little while, and after the military people left, they put the flag in the extra bedroom next to me up on a shelf where they displayed it. Probably that very instant that they put the flag up there and walked away from the room, my parents, this figure appeared in the hallway in between my bedroom and the extra bedroom. I would say this guy was maybe 6 foot, 6'1" maybe, skinny or slender. He appeared in dress military greens, his uniform. He didn't do much. He just kind of appeared. He was like standing at attention, kind of, and his head looked down at me, and he looked back up, and then he faded away. And that was pretty weird for me. I tried to ask my mom and dad who this guy was, and I'm sure they told me, but by then I've forgotten. Being 5, 6 years old, I've kind of forgotten. But that has always wondered me about paranormal. My parents are religious, but my mom also knew that there was something else on the other side. They were Lutheran. We went to a Lutheran church, but my mom also, at one time, they tried to, apparently, I think they levitated my brother Michael, or maybe attempted, I'm not sure. During that time, I was in bed, 7:30 was my bedtime, so when I went to bed, that's when they started dabbling around with stuff like that, and apparently something happened because it freaked them all out, and they don't really talk anything about that anymore, or do any of that stuff anymore. Me, I'm curious, and I want to know what happened, and they don't want to talk about it, but my mom did tell me that they were able to somehow try to levitate my brother, and something happened, and it freaked them all out. But I always been curious about the paranormal since then. Like what's going on? Are these truly ghosts? Are they angels? Are they what is on the other side? That's kind of how I got into the paranormal. I was being curious about what was going on there on the other side. Because, like I said, my mom knew that there was something else other than, just dying and disintegrating, I guess. That's kind of my first story. It really wasn't much. This is my second story. Now that I'm older, we always we go to known haunted spots. Some of the places you see on the TV shows, I've been there. We purposely go there. We ask for the most haunted room. We went to the Copper Queen Hotel in Bisbee, Arizona, about 3 years ago. We asked for the Julia Lowe room. Anyway, I asked for that very room, and we got it. The Julia Lowe room, if some of you are not familiar, there is the TV show Ghost Hunters. Grant Wilson had that room, and on the episode, his right foot got exposed. The sheets pulled up, exposing his foot. And so, if you remember that episode, that's the room that I got. Now, Julia Lowe, apparently, she has a thing for married men. That's what I was told during the ghost tour at the Copper Queen Hotel. We went on the tour, and let me back up. When we checked in at 9:30 in the morning, it was probably in the low 90s outside. They had the air conditioning on inside the room. The moment we walked in there opened the door to our room, activity started going right away. So I'm seeing these little like sparks. The only way, one spark, but the only way I could describe it is if you had a sparkler from like 4th of July, and those little golden sparks that jump off it when you light it. That's kind of what I saw. I saw this little tiny golden spark, and it was it was cruising above the floor, maybe a foot off the floor, roughly, and it went down the little hallway in our room and went into the bathroom. So I followed it into the bathroom, and then I saw it. Me and Nancy actually saw it shoot up from the back of the toilet and then over into the shower stall, and that's where we lost it. But we saw that, and then so I'm already like, wow, there's stuff going on. Could that have been a bug? Could that have been something else, or was that really Julia, or is that somebody else? Now there's, I believe, to be two spirits there. Up on the fourth floor, there's little Billy, and he has a fascination with shoes. But down on the third floor, in my room, we have Julia Lowe. We opened the door, we put in our luggage, and like I said, we saw the spark go by. So I immediately followed it, and then after after it shot into the shower stall and we lost it, I went back to the bed and I started undoing my camera equipment. Well, then that spark reappeared by the head of the bed, in between the two pillows, right in the middle of the bed. And I'm at the foot of the bed, opening up my stuff, trying to get it out, but there's the little spark started kind of cruising around again by the bed. And so, okay, now I'm getting a little excited because I can actually see this. So I couldn't get my camera equipment out fast enough to record this thing, so I ended up getting my cell phone and putting on camera and then hitting video. So I'm taking video of this thing at the same time I'm trying to get my camera equipment out. So things are going on. My wife, she's taking base reads. We turn off the air condition, and just to make sure there's no like dust flying out of that. So we turn all that off, and we're trying to get a base read, and she's still like kind of reappears. The little spark kind of goes away, but it reappears by the head of the bed right there. So now I put my K2. I get my K2 meter out, and I put it in the middle of the two pillows in the dead center of the bed, but up there where the pillows are. And I'm standing at the foot of the bed, directly in the center, and with my cell phone video going, and I go, Julia, if that's you, can you light up the K2? Can you give me 3 lights? So the first light's always on, that's the power button, but then the second one goes, and then the third one goes. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Something made it light up, whether that was her or a frequency somewhere. I'm going to ask her to do it again, if that's her. This time I want 4 lights, so I ask her to light it 4 times. Sure enough, I get once again, the first light is always on. It's the power one. But then the second light comes shortly. Right after that is the third one, and then it goes right to the fourth one. It's like, okay, well, this time I asked for 4 lights, and she lit it up. Then I asked her to light the entire thing up, and it did. Now, I'm finally getting my camera out, and I'm putting it at the foot of the bed to record the K2 meter. Now, as I'm doing that, then my wife is standing to the side of the bed, to my left side, and she's starting to feel something touch her. She goes, I could, on my left arm, up by the bicep and tricep area, I could feel someone gently grab my arm. Not hard, but she goes, I could literally feel each finger kind of grab my arm there. And it's getting really cold. She's getting goosebumps. So I decided to walk over there. I put my arm up against hers, and then I'm starting to get goosebumps. I could start feeling the cold temperatures there. I was like, wow, this is pretty weird. So she's got the tri-fuel meter going, and it's kind of bouncing around. But then I'm still trying to get my voice recorders and everything out set up, because things are going weird in this room right when we checked in. So I'm back at the foot of the bed, and then I see this little spark. So I go, okay, Julia, if this is you, on the count of 3, I want you to come straight at me. And I'm explaining that this thing in my hand is just a cell phone. I'm just taking pictures. It's not a weapon or nothing like that. So I go on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. This little spark, golden spark thing, hovers above the bed, maybe 2-3 inches, and comes right to the foot of the bed and swishes right in front of my face and right directly over my head. And I'm getting this on my cell phone video. Now, what's weird is you can see this little golden spark with your eyes, but the video captures like a dust orb. You know how people will take a picture of like a Christmas tree with the family standing there, and there's always this little white dust particle, or some will call it an orb, that's like 3 feet above everybody else. Well, unfortunately, that's what this looked like through my cell phone video. It looked like a little white dust particle that's doing everything that I'm telling it to do. So once again, I'm at the foot of the bed, and a second time I say, okay, that was maybe coincidence, Julia. If this is truly you, let's try this one more time. So now this is the second time. I go, on a count of 3, come straight at me. So I go 1, 2, 3. Once again, this little orbish thing hovers about 2-3 inches above the covers and comes straight at the foot of the bed, right in front of my face and directly right over my head. So I was like, okay, well, that's twice that this happened on my command. So now I'm going to change it up just a little bit. I'm going to make her do the same thing, but this time I'm going to walk way over to the left to the door. So now I'm standing in the door jamb, right where you enter the room. And the bed's probably a good 10 feet or 8 feet away from me. And I'm asking Julia, if that's you, let's do this a third time on the count of 3. So here I am right at the door with my cell phone video. This time I also have my actual camera on the foot of the bed, filming the K2 meter and also where she was hanging out at. So on the count of 3, I said 1, 2, 3. This little orbish thing once again hovers about 2 inches and comes straight down. And when it got to about the middle of the bed, not towards the foot area, but about the middle of the bed, it made a turn towards the left side of the bed and comes straight at me, right in front of my face and right over my head. So that was the third time that this thing did exactly what I told it to do. So now I'm really getting excited. I was like, okay, this is I don't know. This is a coincidence, or there's got to be something behind this. But whatever this is, it's doing exactly what I'm asking it to do. Anyway, it starts to die down about 11 o'clock. We're probably there an hour and a half doing this. So about 11 o'clock, it finally dies down and it's all quiet in our room. So my wife and I, we take off and we go enjoy a day checking out downtown Bisbee, Arizona. We come back later for the ghost tour. We decided, let's go check out the ghost tour. So it was pretty cool. Renee, who puts it on, does a great job. We were up in the 4th floor checking out rooms where little Billy is supposed to be. And then we came down to the 3rd floor and she showed us around the 3rd floor. And we come to the Julia Low room and she didn't know that we were in there. She goes, somebody's got the Julia Low room, so I would open it up that somebody's there. And I said, we're in that room. So I gladly opened it up for everybody to look in. And then, everybody looked, and then, we closed the door and we went on with the tour. But after that was over, after the tour was over, I was up on the 4th floor investigating. And I come down to the 3rd floor every now and then and investigate down there. It's a great place because they allow you to have all the lights off, and you can pretty much do what you want there. There's really no restrictions. So we turned off all the hall lights, every light, every single piece of power was gone and off. So we're like, all right, now we could really do a good reading here and get some real good footage, and hopefully it's not anything electrical that's going to contaminate stuff. The only electricity now at this time is, battery power. So we're, I'm up there till about maybe 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock investigating, and I finally get tired, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed. Everybody else has gone to bed. I stayed up by myself investigating, and I finally get tired. I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed. Well, about 4:30 in the morning, I'm laying on the left side of the bed. If you're standing at the foot of the bed, the left side, that's kind of my side right there. I'm laying there, and something smacked my foot, like if something was walking around the foot of the bed, and my foot might have been in their way, and it just kind of backhanded me. Just kind of a little smack. It didn't hurt or anything, but it was enough to wake me up. And it was enough to wake me up. So I get up, I'm looking around, I don't see anything. I'm checking things out, nothing's going on, it's all quiet. I'm looking at my camera equipment, everything's going off, my voice recorders are still recording, my full spectrums are still recording. So I look at all that stuff, I'm like, okay. If I got something, hopefully it's on film, it's still recording, I'm going back to sleep. So I go back to sleep. And I wake up about 7:30, just a few hours later, I wake up and I tell Nancy, normally we don't look at our video footage or go through our evidence till we get home from vacation, but something happened that night. So I wanted to scroll back to that timeline around 4:30. When I got to that timeline on my laptop, watching the video, you don't really see anything smack my foot, but you do see me immediately rise up and look around and check things out, and then go, I'm going back to sleep. But then shortly after I finally go back to sleep, you kind of see this pixelation at the foot of the bed, and it kind of goes to the right side of the bed, the other the foot of the bed on the other side, and where my wife she was sleeping sideways on her side facing the wall. The covers by her feet, this was kind of hard to really look at, but the sheets get pulled up about 3 or 4 inches roughly, and then they get pulled down really tight, like if someone's trying to tuck you in. The sheets get pulled down really tight, and then there's more pixelation that kind of walk up the other side of the bed towards her head. So it kind of walks up to like the corner of the room, in between the bed and the wall. There's maybe a 2-foot gap, and there's a gap for her to walk through. But there's this pixelation gets stronger and stronger, and there's like this big black mass, round mass, like a beach ball, and it kind of dives under the bed. So you get to see it by my wife's head. It just kind of forms this big round black mass, and then it just kind of goes swoosh right underneath the bed. And watching that and capturing that on film, that was pretty impressive. I was like, really cool. That was all our video footage that we captured that particular time that we were there. And I'm so thankful, because you could go to these places that are well-known haunted locations, and you could go there and get nothing. you could go there several times and still get nothing. We went there and we sort of hit the jackpot. We were able to get all kinds of good stuff there. So anyone's out there listening, if you're going to the Copper Queen Hotel, get the Julia Low room. Oh, and for little Billy, a helpful thing, he has a fascination with shoes. So what I did is I went to Rite Aid and I just bought a cheap pair of shoes that have the little blinky lights, and I left them up there, and with a static camera just filming those, and one of the shoes got knocked over on its side, and the little blinky lights also lit up when that happened. So that was pretty cool. This is my ghost story. I thank you all very much for listening.
Hello, my name's Jordan Parker and this is my ghost story. It all began a few years ago, quite rapidly, when I was living in the house that I've lived in all my life, and small things just started happening, things that you may take for granted, things moving, or maybe shadows, unusual smells, all that kind of things. And coming to the smells are quite strange. I've spoke about these to people before and they don't tend to understand them. For example, we get the smell of strong smoke about the house, which is really unusual because we don't really use matches or anything, and we don't have like a log fire, so the smell of smoke shouldn't be something that you'd smell in our household. We also get the smell of like medical TCP cleaning, and we've never used this in the house from the day that we bought it, so why we should be able to smell it is quite unusual. And also the smell that is quite the most gruesome and also almost sickening is the smell of blood, almost raw meat. For example, when you walk into the butcher's and the pungent smell of blood hits you, it's that, but in your household. And this is not constant, so it's not like we've got an underlying problem with these smells or a natural cause. And believe me, we've gone through all ways of trying to think of natural causes for this, and we've just hit dead ends. So that's one of the things that we've experienced in the house to start with. Other things including just things moving. For example, I've got the statue of the Virgin Mary, and it sometimes turns to look towards this door that leads to the attic, which that's quite interesting and also a little bit unnerving because the attic's a quite creepy place. See, the house that I live in England was built 119 years ago in 1896, and there've been a few colourful characters living in the house over the years. One of the stories which I got told by an old lady which lives a few doors down is about these two sisters, identical twin sisters, which also almost sounds like a horror movie, but identical twin sisters who lived in the house maybe 2, 3, 4 tenants before us, and they were highly religious, highly Catholic ladies, and they were rarely seen out, and if you did, people, I don't know, it's almost as if they scared people, which is not very nice. But these ladies, they lived in the house their whole lives, and their parents lived in the house before them. So for all we know, the time which this happened, their parents could have been the first occupants of this house. And anyway, onto this is, the scary thing is the apparitions which I have actually seen in this house are women. Whether it could be these women, I don't know, because they died before I was born. One, we're not quite sure, but it seems that one of them died in the house and the other died in a elderly care home not far away. So it would make sense that if they've lived in the house the whole life together, never married, never had children, that they may reside in this building, because with old houses, for example, I've got floorboards in my room and it's thick brick walls. It would make sense that, according to the stone tape theory, that the energy from these people can be recorded in the walls. But The apparitions that I've seen were actually quite unnerving because they happened when you least expect it, but you find that happens with hauntings a lot. For example, the first time I saw a spirit or an apparition in the house was in the early hours of the morning. I believe it was Christmas Eve, and I looked at the clock and it seemed to be about 4 o'clock, and this was a few years ago, so it may be a bit rough, but I went out to the toilet, and when I was coming back from the toilet across the landing, I looked down the stairs, and I saw a woman, and this woman, she seemed to be in some sort of gown, but it wasn't like there was light on her, it was as if light was emanating from her. And the creepiest bit about this apparition is the fact that several months after, we'd never spoke to it about as next door neighbours, but the next door neighbours came to us because they know that I'm interested in ghosts and the like, telling us that spirits, that she'd seen the exact same apparition. But I'd seen this lady twice. I was gardening last summer, I believe it was, and I looked up to my mum's bedroom window, which faces onto the garden, to see a woman in the house. And as we'd had the door open all day, as it was quite warm, I ran in, and believing that someone was actually in the house, a physical being, and ran into my mum's room, opened the door, and there was no one there. Some of the other things that are quite more sinister include the fact that when we went to the beach, we went to the coast, and we picked up a pebble, and we just kept it because it was quite pretty, and it had been in the bathroom for probably about a month, maybe more. And we were laid down watching television one night in the living room, and we heard something hit the glass front door very hard. And we turned all the lights on, seeing whether it was cracked or whether it was teenagers outside. The door was not cracked, apart from the pebble which was in the bathroom was on the floor. Several things have been thrown like that, and a coin also. But the most sinister of all things which has happened in the house happened on the 1st of December last year, and it's quite a personal experience, so I don't want to go into all the details, apart from I'll just say that something set on fire of its own accord, inexplicably, and when we went to put it out, obviously, because we didn't want the house to go up in flames, whatever it was, the thing that was burning had no damage to it whatsoever. It was as even if it wasn't hot. So thank you for listening to my ghost story, and goodbye.
Wow, those were pretty amazing stories.
They were, and those are some pretty amazing guests that we had.
Yeah, I'm trying to shake off the cold and the chills from their stories right now as we step back inside from that, beautiful night, campfire going, everybody telling their stories. It was really awesome.
It was awesome. It was a nice setting. It was lovely, and I just want to say again, thank you so much to our Magnificent Eight, who took time out of their lives and their schedules to call in and spill everything.
Right.
Some of these stories are pretty personal.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to have a certain amount of just strong will about what had happened to be able to tell that, because most people think that they're crazy because of what happened, and
or they feel shameful about it or embarrassed about it, or I cannot talk about that. So for these people to actually come and be like, no, I want to talk about it and I want to put it on your radio show, like that's ballsy.
Yeah,
I think
it is.
So thank you guys again for doing that and helping create this year's Ghost Stories episode.
Yes, thank you so very much. We appreciate it.
Yes. And then also thank you to Mike Smith over at InfoSub.
Mike Smith!
Yes, he keeps our little radio station going worldwide.
Yes, thank you, sir.
So huge thank you to Mike for all the work you do, for putting it up, for advertising, on Facebook, putting the events up, re-airing our shows. We cannot thank you enough. So please check out infosub.listen2, it's the number 2, myradio.com, where there's our show, there's Oregon Paranormal Radio, there's all sorts of awesome shows on there you can listen to.
As well as music.
Yeah, so check them out. I'm sure you will find plenty of things that will catch your fancy.
Yes. So let's just give it a whirl tonight and call it a good one and get ourselves warmed up. Mm-hmm. Maybe a hot toddy
Another hot
ourselves.
toddy.
All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and we will be back with some new great content here coming up soon.
Yes. So thank you. Good night.
Good night.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
There are people who have reported experiencing the same things that we have been experiencing.
I hear the brush popping and stuff. Oh, there he goes. Jesus.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.